Hi, this is Clyde, and welcome to episode 1 of Clyde's Vinyl Collection. I've been collecting records for 56 years, off and on. Most of the time on, because if I had kept every record I ever had, I probably would have like 10,000 or more. But over the years, through moving, and other things in life, the family getting mad at all these records being in the house, I've had to downsize several times. And one time, even in the 90s, I got just tired of my records, took them down to New Orleans area, Metairie, to the record shows, and sold a lot of them. A lot of great records gone I'll never get again. But anyway, in the 90s, 2000s, maybe late 90s, 2000, my brother got into record collecting, which is something he had never done before, and he wanted somebody to collect with him, so he got me back into record collecting. So now I probably only have about 1,000, but he was buying me records. He came over every couple times a week, brought more records to me, and said, "Hey, you must have these, you must have these. This is great." And I was like, "Oh Lord, here we go again." And so I just got hooked again. Well, anyway, I know that a lot of the people on the, right now are doing the 10 records they play the most. Mine's a little different. I'm gonna show you the 10 albums that got me into record collecting in the first place when I was about 15 in 1968, 67 to 69. And I'm going to start with the very first record I ever bought, or I should say my mother bought it because I didn't have any money. I had went to a store, I saw this record, and I said, I went to her because my dad definitely wouldn't have bought me a record. And my mom said, oh no, $2.99 for a record or whatever it was, that's way too much. But I said, hey, I really have to have it. It's a psychedelic record and I want to hear psychedelic music and I love the cover. So what was it? Yeah, Vanilla Fudge's first album. Now, yeah, I'm gonna do it like that. Anyway, some reason I thought this was really psychedelic cover. Now I look at it and go, well, it's interesting, but I've seen better. But I love this album because it had You Keep Me Hanging On and Take Me for a Little While, and all the little, they slowed down all their songs to make them sound like maybe more druggy, like something you might be hearing when you're on drugs. You don't hear it, like taking whatever. You might say, instead of "you keep me hanging on," you hear it as "you keep me hanging on." So I thought that was psychedelic back then, and I still love this record. I haven't played it in a while, but it is really what got me started. Now my second record, and really this is if I had to pick any record that's my number one album ever, it would be the Notorious Bird Brothers. This is the most perfect album I think that has ever been out. Every track fits perfectly together. It's like a puzzle. It went just right. There's nothing, everything just, it flows from beginning to end as it should. Everything in the universe is right on this one album. And I still play it a lot. It may be the album I played more than any other. So it would also be my number one favorite album of all time. But it is just one of the most beautiful albums I've ever heard. That's an understatement. Next, Eric Burdon and the Animals. The twain shall meet, because I loved Sky Pilot, and I loved Monterey, and I love this album. I've got almost every album by this band, but this is the one I definitely play the most, and I need to play again because I have not listened to it in a while, but I would never go without a copy of this. It is so wonderful. So says me. Next, The Doors. Yeah, not a whole lot of surprises here, I guess, but The Doors, Waiting for the Sun. This is another one of those albums that I listen to from beginning to end, and the only song I'm a little bit not that big about would be My Wild Love, I think it's called, and it's okay. The rest of the album, it's just a fantastic album. And none of these are my original copies. Like I said, I dumped all my records in the 90s, and I've had to go back and buy them, a lot of them, or my brother bought them for me. I used to just tell him, hey, I really would like to have that Rolling Stones album, and he would come over next week and he bought it for me. But, he's passed on since then, and I really miss him. Me and him had some great adventures going to New Orleans and going to record stores. Next is, let me take it out of this thing, it's probably causing it to be glare. The Rolling Stones Satanic Majesties, with a lenticular cover. Now, I didn't know what lenticular even meant until recently. I just always called it the 3D cover. But it's another perfect album most of the way. It does have a couple things on it, but I can listen to it and enjoy it all the way through. She's a Rainbow and 2,000 Light Years from Home. Songs like that. In Another Land. I like everything on side 1 pretty much, and then side 2 goes a little downhill, maybe actually about the second or third song, but still my favorite album of all by the Rolling Stones. Next up, The Small Faces. There are but 4 small faces, and this is another nearly perfect album to me. It's really just an American compilation, but they did a great job of putting some fantastic songs on here. Ichigu Park, things like that. It's just amazing. You can't. I bought this album back in the '68 when my brother was kind of young. He was maybe about 12, 10. And I said, hey, I really got you a great album. You're going to love it. And he played it and he hated it. He's like, he gave it back to me. It was a Christmas present, but he hated it. So I took it back, and it's just a great album. Another one of those almost perfect albums. Now, the album that I also bought him that he absolutely loved, and I do too, and it's probably my favorite album by the Monkees. It's probably not showing up too good. It's Head, another album that's really strange. It doesn't have the 6 songs on it and a lot of sound effects, but I've always enjoyed this album for some reason. Normally I would be annoyed by that, but it was the Monkees. We liked the Monkees back then, so this was like the high point to me of their career. Next would be an album that probably should have been way up higher. Steve Miller Band's Children of the Future. It's side 1 is just great. I love side 1. I can play it over. This may be my second or third most played album ever. And I'm showing you my older copy, but I just bought a reissue of this that I haven't played yet, because I just want to hear it in better quality. Children of the Future, all side 1, is made up of separate songs, but it almost sounds like one long suite. And sweet it is. The side 2 is made up of more bluesy or acoustic tracks. Still great. I still like it. It's a lot. Nothing compared to the side 1, but I love this album. Either side, and it's actually one of the. I'm not a big fan of Steve Miller Band later on, but this album is absolutely wonderful. Okay, back in 1968, there was an old. It was a like, it was like a Walmart at the time, but it wasn't Walmart. Maybe it was a Gibson's or one of those, I don't know. And it was a big store, and they always sold records. And they would sell records. They had tons of cheap records for 99 cents, and you really, you couldn't beat that. But the thing was, I was only about 15 or 16, and no, I was 15 because I did get a part-time job when I was 16 to buy records. But at the time, I had to beg my parents for records, and sometimes that worked, and sometimes it didn't. But this album was only at 99 cents, I think, and it was Traffic's Mr. Fantasy, the British copy. In that pile, for $1 a piece, was maybe as many as 500 British copies of albums that this store had. I mean, if it was today, I would have just picked all those up. But back then, I think I was only able to get maybe 4 or 5. So that's it's one of those things you look back on and go, God, I wish I'd have had some more money. But I didn't. So anyways, I did get this one and a few others. And this album is different than the American, has a few different tracks. The Dave Mason songs on here, some of them, at least one of them, was taken off on the Mr. Fantasy album that came out here. And I actually think that album, the American album, is a better album overall. But I love this album. I love this cover. It's just fantastic. And I can listen to either copy and just go, wow, that is great. Now here's one that maybe taking a little bit explaining. Back in Uruguay, back in the mid-60s, there was no chance of the Beatles coming there, I guess. And so they had to make their own Beatles, and that they were called the Shakers. The Break It All was the album it came out with, and I paid 33 cents for this record back in the day. It was 3 for $1 records, and I could have bought a bunch of these for 33 cents a piece. Did I? No, because I'd never heard of them. But when I got home and played it, I was blown away. I mean, they were truly the Uruguayan Beatles. The songs were sort of an early Beatles type stuff, maybe around Hard Day's Night or that era. And they put out 4 albums, and each album kind of corresponds with the Beatles in their later years. Like, the second album was more like the Rubber Soul era, and then their third album was like the Sgt. Pepper era, and then their fourth album you can kind of compare to the White Album, Let It Be type thing. But this album is, from start to finish, a great album. It's they came to America to make this album. They wanted to do an American English language version of this album, and the English is not very good. And the only song in Spanish is Ticket to Ride, which is the Beatle cover. But the rest they wrote and did a good job. I mean, it's almost like you're hearing this rare Beatle album with bad English. But anyway, the Shakers were one of my favorite bands of all time. I honestly would not want to go without this copy either. And they're not cheap anymore. I think that I probably had to pay maybe like $100 for this one. But I had a copy earlier that like I said, I got rid of all my records, and what an idiot. I mean, I wish I'd have kept some of them. But anyway, this copy's good enough, and there's reissues out now of their albums, and I'm thinking about picking this up as a reissue for the maybe better quality. Okay, I got one more, and this album ranks right up there with the Byrds to me as one of my favorite albums of all time. And I'm showing it last, but that is definitely not that I feel like it should be last. I could have easily put it up front, and that is the Idle Race, The Birthday Party. This album was, the Jeff Lynne of ELO. This was his first band, and they had ties with The Move. They were from the same area as The Move. So eventually, after a couple of albums, this being the first, Jeff Lynne went on to join The Move for a couple of records and then formed ELO. And of course, the rest is history, and I guess he got rich. This album, though, called The Birthday Party, is just another one of those great, perfect albums. I can listen to this. It's another one of those, I might have to put this in my top 5 of all time listenable records. It's very Toy Town, Psych, really maybe corny in some ways, but it's just beautiful songs. And, I would never get this began my second or third copy, actually, but from this point on, I will never get rid of it. And if I see a reissued copy anytime soon, I will probably pick that one up. Anyway, I think that was 10. It might have been 11 albums I showed you. And I also want to point out that I do a record show, a radio show on WHYR 96.9 Baton Rouge Community Radio every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Baton Rouge, New Orleans time. And it's called Nether Street, which is a song that Bodass with Steve Howe did, and it just fit in with what I want. I just thought that's a great name for a show. And I play nothing I play mostly obscure things, sometimes a few things that are pretty well known, and everything from the 60s up until today, whatever I just feel like playing. Very, it's not very commercial, and if you ever want to listen to it, it's on Wednesday nights at 10 o'clock on 96.9 Baton Rouge Community Radio. It's easily found. And to end this episode, I want to do the random record of the week, in which I will grab a record at random from my record collection, and I will show it to you and tell you hopefully something about it. Oh no! No, this is an album I love. It's Mason Prophet, and it's it's got two guys hanging from a tree back there, but it has a song on here. It's called Wanted. My mind goes blank when I'm, on the air here. And I like the whole album. It's a country rock sound to it. One song on here is called Two Hangmen. Is just a fantastic song. Worth it for this album for that alone. And it's a sort of a sad song, but if you heard it, I don't see how you couldn't possibly like it. It's just an amazing 70s country rock type song. Mason Prophet, the main guys in the band, they went on to form a Christian rock band, but back in the early 70s, they were putting out these country rock out. I wouldn't really call it southern rock or anything, maybe, but it's definitely kind of in that. But just for Two Hangmen alone. So yeah, that's the only thing. It does open up to show you that gatefold, two guys hanging from a tree. Not so good. Anyway, so hopefully I will continue doing this and people won't be too hard on me. Hey, this is my first time. Jeez. Yes, I know I need a haircut, but it won't happen. Anyway, I will attempt to at least do one a week and show you a few things and getting much deeper. This is just showing you what got me into my music. But anyway, this is Clyde, and for Clyde's Vinyl Collection, saying Goodbye. There's my hand. Bye.